Let's say your African gray parrot needs a friend. What kind of parrot can you get them? I'm Kaylin, the author of The Parrot Bliss Bond. Please be sure to get your copy on Amazon so that you have your handbook to providing a quality life for your plucked African gray so you can then have quantities of bliss. Unfortunately, Hera has always been a plucker. Well, we adopted her that way. So there she is. Now, someone submitted a great question. They asked, I have a photobomber here. Photobomber. They asked if they wanted to get a friend for their African gray parrot, what would be a good friend? And before I tell you a little bit of that, I'm going to tell you I've got my new awesome Parrot Caiques t-shirt. How cool is that? Available on parrotbliss.com. My daughter is a parrot whisperer and she draws them. And I'm sorry if someone's being a little loud. That's our hawkhead trying to get attention back there. All right. So what do you do if you have an African gray and you want a friend for them? The thing is, you're going to have to recognize one of two things. Either you have to get the same species, or number one, your parrots have to grow up together to really bond and get along if they're going to be friends. Or number two, you need to have a parrot who's going to match them. Now, Macey just flew into the picture. Macey is a Cape Parrot, also from the African continent. The thing about both of these species is they're pretty chill, they're pretty mellow, they're pretty quiet. And so, for example, they could make a good matching. On the other hand, a parrot that's loud like my hawkhead or emerald right here, my Hans macaw, who wants to get attention, but is not willing to step up or anything. There you go. Or a macaw. There's a good example of a parrot that probably isn't going to be well suited to your parrot. You're going to want to try to match those personalities because African grays, they don't really like that. They don't like a whole lot of noise. They don't like a whole lot of crazy. You could see by Hera, she's pretty calm and chill. Now, I don't really know how old she is because once a parrot's an adult, it's really hard to tell if they're 3, 4, 5 years old or like 40. So neither, like my vet couldn't tell me, couldn't even like guess too well. Although she thought that Hera was younger. But you could see that Hera's pretty chill. And that's very typical. Another example is Caique parrots. They're really active. They're all over the place. They're loud. You know, that would be a pretty good mismatch. You could see that Macey is more active than Hera, but you can see that they're both pretty chill. Generally speaking, okay, now Zeus is going to fly in the picture. Zeus is my male African gray. You could see that their temperaments kind of match, and that's really what you're after. Hi, Zeus. Are you going to come over here? If my hawkhead quiets down, oh, and there's my Cape Parrot. If you get a second African gray, one thing about it is right now, when I talked to the bird gardens of Naples, Carrie had told me that African grays aren't getting rehomed because they're so expensive. So they aren't getting surrendered. You might be able to rehome one because if you have an adult African gray, you really want another adult. You can get a young one, but you're going to really have to raise the young one and not put them together until they're both adults. And really, that's going to be not just like a weaning age, but I couldn't tell you exactly when you would be able to put them together. Now, my African Cape has photobombed the video for the African Gray. I can't tell you exactly when you'd be able to put them together. It's going to depend some on their temperaments, but it could be, 1, 2, 3 years, 4, 5 years until they're both at the same sexually mature or older sort of like age bracket. And therefore, if I was getting a friend for my African Gray, I would get another adult African Gray because I know that I'm going to be able to bring another adult African Gray in. And chances are they're just going to hit it off and their temperaments are going to match and there isn't going to be a problem. Yes, it's always possible that they won't get along, but I don't really see that with the African Grays. I feel like it couldn't happen, but pretty much they tend to like other African Grays. You can't exactly tell because they don't do things like other species, like sit there and beak each other a lot and feed each other and preen each other and cuddle up to each other. But they do, you could just kind of tell because they're, they're happier, they're hanging out, and you can just kind of tell that an African Gray is happy to have a friend. So I hope that helps if you are looking at getting a friend for your African Gray. If you only have one African Gray, what I always say about other species really applies. Having 2 African Grays doesn't mean that your Gray is going to be less friendly. Now, my African Grays, like I said, I adopted them as adults, and so we weren't terribly bonded, and I don't push that, but you can see that. Hi, Hera. Can I give you a pet? A little bit, just a little bit. Hera, she tolerates me petting her. African Grays are not cuddle butts, and so, she really likes me. She really likes hanging out with me. I really like her. I like hanging out with her. And she does spend time, all of the rest of her time, with her mate, Zeus, and they hang out, and it just doesn't really impede their interest in us, their wanting to hang out with us, or anything like that. You could see, I'm right next to her, and now she and I, we're shoulder to shoulder, and she's like, hey, what's that? But you could see that she's not getting away from me, nothing like that. This is what an African Gray bond with a human looks like when you adopted the African Gray as an adult. So there isn't that bonding that has gone on so that I've known her whole life instead of only known her for several years now, but it's different. The bond isn't the same. So I do really recommend getting a friend for your African Gray because it's more fun for both of you. It's just like, hey, should we have a third friend? Why not? The more the merrier, up to a certain point. All right, thanks for joining me in this blissful video. If you have a parrot like Hera who hasn't already damaged her follicles, then consider getting Tink's Parrot Relief. It's CBD in hemp oil, and it can help calm your parrot so that they don't pluck as much. Because once they've plucked for about a month, it's almost impossible to get them to pluck. It's a tough thing, and I actually don't see her plucking. I also don't see her feathers growing back in. So I think she damaged her follicles way before I ever met her. Thank you for joining me in this blissful African coast video, since they're both from the African continent. I will catch you next time.